Morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the second day of NAB. My name is Loren. I am the senior product trainer out of the Burbank facility. We do all sorts of really great education out there. Is anyone here from the LA area or visiting the LA area often for work? Okay, a couple hands. The new Burbank facility is a really amazing state-of-the-art facility. We'll be opening up in July, actually. We've got a whole slew of professional tools for filmmakers to educate you from everything from a camera prep bay, where we can shoot charts, test charts, models, all sort of basic camera tests, to an edit suite where we can actually cut that stuff up, to a 4K DI suite where we've got a Barco 4K projector, HDR displays. We can do a lot of, sort of basically from camera to finishing is that Burbank facility. It's a really sort of exciting thing. As a nerd myself, you'll hear me call myself this quite a lot during the presentation. I'm really excited about that facility. But today, we're all here to talk about something that's sort of close to heart for me. It's something that I don't really hear about a lot on the show floor. We're all sort of focused in the Canon world, in the camera world, on the operator experience, how we're operating camera, what this camera can do for us as operators, and final piece. But there's something that we don't really hear a lot about. And it's the camera to client sort of relationship. The idea of dailies. We used to have dailies when we were shooting film. We'd have rushes sent to the lab. They'd come back if we were shooting on location. We'd make an impromptu, screening room in a hotel, and we'd watch dailies as sort of this communal effort. We'd see, because there was, we had video taps introduced, but of course, there wasn't this instant accessibility like we have now with on-set playback. So dailies was a really big, critical thing, and there was no really way to sort of integrate that into the larger workflow. But now we've got our iPhones, we've got digital media files. We can have these dailies accessible at any time, almost immediately after shooting, and we can sort of integrate that into our production workflow. So I want to talk about some ways to make dailies not only more efficient, but more of a communal process, because I feel like in some of this way, we've lost that communal, let's all sit in the room, watch the rushes, and sort of talk about the production as a whole. So we're going to talk about this in three main sections. First thing, we're going to look at some of the efficiencies that we can do, how we can make dailies faster, how we can turn around things, and basically, time is money on set, so how we can actually save money. Then we're going to look at some managing all this data. There's a lot of data involved with doing dailies with any of our media. We're basically doubling up our media, not in size, but it's sort of in structure. We have to create these secondary versions. And I've got a lot of producers. These dailies are ideal for producers and reporters, people who need to sort of see video ahead of time when they're either building their scripts like a reporter, or producers if they want to actually see and make critiques on the film. Oh, we need to reshoot this. We need to sort of shift our direction. And I know there's a lot of producers that I work with and a lot of reporters that I work with that are not incredibly technical. So I want to sort of show, if any of you are producers in the audience, how we manage this media and how we work as non-DITs, non-DPs, people who don't deal with this stuff on a daily basis, how we can actually work and manage that media. And then, of course, we're going to look at metadata. So this idea of communal. Of course, we're not sitting in hotel rooms anymore. We're not doing these screenings. But we can actually work and still be communal by integrating some of this really nice metadata that Canon's got to offer. So first, I want to show you sort of the traditional workflow for those of you who aren't familiar with data wrangling, that sort of traditional ideology there. So what happens usually is we shoot our footage, we fill up a card, 80% full or whatnot, capture it, we hand it off to a DIT on set, and then they will actually back up that footage redundantly. They will back it up to a RAID 5 or a bunch of different drives. So you've got redundancy of your main captured media. And then what they'll also do is they'll take that main media, that full resolution, 4K, 8K, whatever resolution you're shooting with, and they'll make smaller resolution proxies or dailies. And the reason we do this is so that they can be viewed on laptops, on iPhones, something that's not data enhanced. The rigs that DITs use are tens of thousands of dollars. They're very processor intensive. They're high-end systems. Producers, we don't expect you guys to have that stuff on your laptop. You're operating on laptops, you're operating on iPads, so having a lighter resolution version, not only in resolution but in subsampling and bit rates, makes it much easier for the producers to work. So what DITs will actually do is they'll take the full res version, they'll scale it down, they'll do a higher level of compression, and they'll actually add LUTs sometimes too, because we're shooting log traditionally, which is a very flat profile. So they'll add a LUT and they'll make it sort of easily digestible and viewable for a traditional producer. But this is time. This is time, and therefore this is money. We've got to offload it, and then not only do we have to offload it, we've got to create that secondary version, and that transcode time takes a lot of additional time. So what if there was a way where we could actually shoot our dailies simultaneously as we shoot our main media? And that's what we can do in the C700 and the C300 Mark II. while capturing our full low compression 4K to the CFast cards. We can shoot 1920 by 1080 or 2048 by 1080 to the SD card at an 8-bit 420 data rate. Very light, very easy to digest. You can play it on any style of laptop, a MacBook Air even, and it is automatically ready and accessible. So instead of having to take our CFast, ingest it, and then also make a transcode, we got them live, ready to go the second the shot is done. So there's a lot of benefits to doing it this way. First off, let's look at file size. Obviously, we're not shooting, these proxies are not 4K, they're much lower resolution, so the file size is going to be smaller. So 240 minutes, that's sort of just the standard 4-hour time frame I want to look at. You got 4 hours of media for a day's shoot. 240 minutes of media in our 4K 10-bit resolution to the CFast cards is 3/4 of a terabyte, 768 gigabytes. That is a lot of data to wrangle. 4 hours to the SD card, the proxies, is 240 minutes is 64 gigabytes. So a substantially less amount of time for downloading, for just file size. So you save a lot of money not having to make secondary transcodes from these primaries. It's just ready to go straight off of that 64 gigabyte card. Now, this is another really interesting fact. Obviously, CFast media is very fast. It's the top of the line media that's out there right now. It is basically small SSDs, 515 megabytes per second. So it's going to read a lot faster than something like an SD card would, which traditionally ranges in sort of the 95 megabytes per second versus the, this is the top of the line SD card that SanDisk announced a couple months ago that does have a 300 megabyte per second read time. So these write times on the bottom are not really what's critical right now. What is critical are the read times. Because write time, we don't need that crazy amount of write for our proxy data. It's very light, we don't need that. But what we do need is this really fast read time to get an optimal download time. So we're gonna ignore the write times for the time being and just look at the 300 megabyte per second, which is lower than actually, the new SanDisk cards are rated at 525, despite the fact they say 515 on the cards. Their tech sheet says 525. So despite the fact that it's slower, we're actually able to transfer the data much faster, obviously, because they're much smaller files. And I'm going to do a little bit of transfer later when we get to the media management. So 4 hours of footage from an SD card gets transferred to an SSD in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, whereas 240 minutes of full resolution footage takes 25 minutes. So not only are we taking more time to offload that, we then still have to make those proxies off of that higher resolution footage. So we're saving a lot of time here just in the mere download time. And then also consider when we start going to the web. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of the cloud service as well. So going to the web, having a much smaller file will upload faster as well. So not having to deal with that is a nice deal. In addition to that, when you are doing your master footage down the proxies, you have to then LUT them. Because obviously our master footage, for the most part, even if you're shooting broadcast now, a lot of broadcasters are shooting log, and they're LUTting it in post, or they're going to be doing some minor grading in post. The built-in LUTs of the C700, or the built-in proxies on the C700 and C300 Mark II can be LUTted in camera. So you have, on this SD card, ready to go, pretty looking photos that your editors can start looking at, your reporters can start metadata and tagging and whatnot. We'll look at that in the metadating section. But basically, you've got pretty much ready to go media to that SD card, which is really, really beneficial. Then we've got sort of the idea of instant accessibility. So again, we're going to add all this kind of stuff up. I'm looking now at 120 minutes, just 2 hours of footage. In a 32 gigabyte card versus 384 gigabytes of CFast master media, we only take 1 minute and 45 seconds to download the SD card. All the CFast card for 2 hours is going to take 12 and a half minutes. This is really where we save the time, though, transcoding time. So this is going to vary depending on your hardware, but this is a quick test I ran on my high-end Retina MacBook Pro. Obviously, we don't need to transcode these proxy files because they are already lightweight, easy, digestible files straight from the camera. So there is no transcode time. But to transcode 2 hours of footage takes 600 minutes on a laptop going to ProRes LT, for those of you who are on the more the techie side. So we're saving so much time ready to go, dailies, 1:45 seconds after I take that card out and put it into my computer, my dailies are ready to go versus creating dailies from my master media with over 10 hours. So a lot of times when you're using the traditional system where you don't have in-camera dailies, the DIT will actually have to do the dailies overnight, and you'll get the dailies either sometime in the middle of the night if they've set up a script to do it automatically, or you'll get them next day. But again, instantly accessible with the SD card, which is a huge, huge thing for me. So what I want to show you now is some media management. So I'm going to actually exit this PowerPoint here, and I'm going to show you our piece of software that we use. So first off, we've got our two media forms here. We've got CFast and SD cards. So CFast, I've got just, I think, about a minute of footage on each of these. So I'm going to plug in my CFast card using a card reader. And I'm going to plug in my SD card using the built-in SD card port on my laptop. Most laptops nowadays also have SD card slots built in, so no need for a card reader, which again, for the producers, for the reporters, that is another easy thing to not forget, a card reader. I can't count the times that I've had card readers missing, and I've had to search around for a new card reader. So they both pop up on my desktop here. I've got my SD card here. The Macs know that it's an SD card because it's a built-in terminal. And then I've got this little Canon drive here. It looks like an external drive because it's a super fast drive there. So over USB, I'm USB 3.0. I just want to show you some of the structure of our files here. So every camera we've got, C300 Mark II, C300 Mark I, C700, everything we've got is the same exact structure. You've got the Canon card name, not changeable. It will always say Canon. You've got a contents folder, not changeable. You've got Clips 001, not changeable, and then here is all your media. So we've got three main files right now. Our CPF file, this is our custom picture file, and what this does is this contains all of our metadata for our gamma curve we shot in, what color gamut we shot in, all the settings in the camera, we're gonna look at that kind of stuff. So that's all of our metadata. Our MXF is our actual video file, so we can see, metadata, 260 bytes. Media, 474 megabytes. And then a thumbnail, just a little preview that our software uses. So this is our main drive, our main CFast hard drive. And there's a couple reasons I can see that. First, looking at the file name. A001, so it's real one, clip 5, a random sequence of numbers or dates combined with a random sequence of numbers, and then Canon. That's a little user-defined field. We can actually set that in camera to say whatever we want. So on my personal cameras, they actually say Loren, so I know that all of these clips that are tagged with my name or something that I shot. So that's a cool little metadata deal in there. But so look at that. So that's our simple little naming scheme there. Now I'm going to go, and remember we're at 474 megabytes. Now I'm going to go to our SD card. Contents, Clips 001, reel number 1, clip 5. So for all intents and purposes, it looks exactly the same except for two things. One, at the very end, _P to indicate proxy. This is really good, so if we're doing an offline workflow, a lot of times I'll cut my proxies in Premiere and then I'll go from an XML to DaVinci. And in that XML transcode, I'll say, hey, don't look at these proxy files, look at these full res files, so I can grade my original camera negative. And that way, and DaVinci can say, don't look at the last character in my scheme. And other than the last character, it's the exact same naming schematic and the same time code we'll see in a minute. But in addition to that, remember, this file was 470 megabytes on the camera negative, and we're 20 megabytes here. So a much easier file to digest. So what I'm going to do now is actually open up our Canon XF utility software. This is free software, accessible online. It's on the C700, C300 Mark II camera page. This is used for all of our XF codecs. So C300 Mark I, C300 Mark II, everything that's XF goes through this. The ProRes of the C700 does not go through this, and the RAW of the C700 does not go through this. We have separate programs for the RAW, and ProRes is sort of its own deal. So right now we've got two cards here. Oops, not that one. We've got our Canon and Canon 1 because I plugged in two cards at the same time. So I can already tell this footage right here is my camera negative. Let me make this bigger. There's a few ways I can tell that. One, I can see that this is log. There's a little log icon up here. So I know this footage was shot in log. When I go to the proxy, there is no log icon because I shot in-camera LUTed proxies. So what my editor sees when they're doing their offline, or what my producer sees when they're looking and trying to build their scripts, they'll see a pretty version of the file. They won't see this very flat, unappealing version. So it's nice to give them this LUTed version. If you don't LUT the file, what you can actually do in this software specifically is you can actually cycle a LUT off and on. So I'm still looking at my camera negative, but I'm turning off and on a LUT just for quick reference. So if you don't shoot proxies, that's a nice deal with this little software here. So what I'm going to do right now is actually download this stuff off the card. So I'm just, for you techie guys out there, I'm going from, right now, an SD card of 300 megabytes per second to my internal SSD, which is, roughly 1,000. It's a super fast SSD. So I'm going to back up my media. I'm going to say, so actually first, before I back it up, I want to show you, I can actually set up where I want this media to go. So I set up a sort of fake drive, a media drive on my desktop. But I could even say, you know what, I want to do it to both folder A and B. So now I can have a redundancy copy done in this software. For now, I'm just going to do folder A. And then I'm going to right-click, or I could say just click up here and click back up. And just watch how fast this is. I'm backing up the proxies. Boom. Entire proxy backed up. Now, I'm going to actually change this name. So here's the file on my local hard drive now. It uses the date to make the folder name. And I'm actually going to go to my Finder and go to my desktop and media drive. Remember, that's where I put it. And there it is. Folder name with the date, contents. It copies the exact same structure. So what I want to do, though, is I don't like that. I don't like that random, to me it looks like a random series of numbers, despite the fact that, yes, it is actually a date. So I'm going to actually right-click here, rename, and I'm going to call this NAB 17 proxy. So it changes it in XF utility, and it also changes it in my Finder. So I'm managing all of my media in Finder through XF utility as well. So now I'm going to back up my card, my actual master media camera negative card. And just keep in mind how fast the previous one was and how slow this is going. So again, this is maybe a minute worth of footage. And I'm going, USB 3.0 could be my bottleneck. There are Thunderbolt card readers, which would be a bit faster. But this is, it's not the fastest thing out there. So again, this is just a minute of media. Going with those proxies is so much faster. And when you're working especially in the broadcast producer role, when you want to start looking through, your reporters that is, and they want to start looking through this media, they want to start building their scripts around it, that's a really big deal. So we're still downloading here. I didn't think it was going to take this long. But yeah, it just proves my point even further. So having those really small proxies is super beneficial. So just even imagine this going, I use Google Drive a lot. So what I actually do is usually my file directory is sending the stuff straight to Google Drive. The proxies go straight to Google Drive, and then Google Drive starts doing its thing. It uploads them to the cloud, and now that Google Drive account, I have a shared account, a terabyte account with me and my producer, my reporters, and what they do is they instantly, once it goes up to the drive, it downloads to their computer, and it's now synced up on the drive. So if I make changes in XF utility, it will now change on their computer. So we just finished downloading. Let me rename this to NAB 17 negative. So here's what I want to show you. Obviously, all the time code is the same. So looking down here, we got literal time of day 8:23, and then 8:23, but also 53 seconds. Starts at 50, ends at, where are we going? Come on. Ends at 58. And our proxies, same thing. Starts at 50, ends at 58. So all the time code is the same between your proxies and your camera negative, which makes it even easier to sync up in post. So what I do, I want to show you some of this metadata right now. So we've got all of our media managed. Ideally, you walk your producers, your reporters through the software. It's really easy once you sort of get a hang of it, but it is a little intimidating when you first look at it. It's definitely not, Frame.io. Their web interface is very clean and very easy. This is designed more on the technical side because of all this metadata I'm about to show you. So in this section, there's little clip priorities here. I can see all sorts of metadata, my start and end time code. Here is where you want to look. So this is, again, we're looking at our proxy stuff. I know this for a variety of reasons, but one being I'm shooting in long GOP. So long GOP, 1920 by 1080, 24 megabits per second, 709 YDR. So baked in, pretty ready to go. This stuff, this proxy stuff, is not crappy. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna mute this and then play. Let's play one of these. It's not. I think I'm gonna pan in here. No, yeah, there we go. It's not bad quality stuff. 420, 8 bits, 24 megabits per second. For any of you C100 Mark II shooters, that might sound familiar. That's the camera negative for C100 Mark II. So the proxy of the C700 and C300 Mark II is a very robust proxy that I've had people use for quick web turnaround. They shoot 4K and then timelines change and they say, okay, we actually need to get this thing up tomorrow. They cut the proxy, they put it online, and no one's the wiser. So it's actually, it's a usable proxy. So I always shoot it even just for backup. But, so let's look at this now. So I'm gonna go, 24 megabits per second. Now let's jump to our camera negative, and it jumps up to 410 megabits per second. So a huge data rate change. I can play this stuff pretty well on my laptop. No, not that one, this one. And it won't stutter too bad because Exit Utility optimizes the playback, and it gets pretty reliable playback. So that's 4K being played back on my laptop. It plays back much better in Exit Utility than it does in VLC or QuickTime or anything like that because we've sort of optimized it. But look at this, all this metadata here. Then we can get even more specific. Under our custom picture, we can see custom pictures are basically the big rule book for the camera. Your gamma curve, your black pedestal. If you were to dial in a look in camera, you'd go in here and look at all of these values. This is all in that .cpf file we looked at when we were managing our data. But the biggest thing I want to talk about for sort of dailies and metadata dealing with is this section here. Clip title, creator, location. I can double click here and I can start adding notes. So I can add location, NAB show floor, NAB show. And then description. Loren says, Loren at 1:28:06. Good shot. I like this shot. I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to now update. And when I click that update button, if these files are located on a Google Drive or a cloud server, that will now update on the drive. And then my producer or my reporter or my editor will see those notes. And what's really nice is all that metadata is searchable. So I can type in clip name or location or description and search for description. Let's say I want to do, what did I type? I said Loren. So if I search all, I should, description, no, the creator, let's see here. Oh, I got to be clicked on negative. Where are we here? Creator. Sometimes this acts up a little bit. Oh, it didn't, because it didn't take. Okay. When you hit the update button, actually, it will save, and then you can actually search all your metadata. So I use this as a really robust archiving system. So when I've actually got all my media in here from years of media, if you're doing a broadcast, if you're doing reports, and you want to look for that one clip from that Burger King or from that burger shop, you can search for that metadata. And if you've tagged it, it's all accessible through here. So being able to deal with metadata and sort of bringing back that communal access of media and metadata is really, really important, and it brings sort of the full workflow together. So I'm a really big fan of metadata, integrating that stuff in camera proxies. It saves so much time, so much money, and it's literally an inexpensive, you don't need the 300 megabit per second read time. That's just for the ideal read off the card. But you can get a $60 128 gigabyte SD card that will last you days of proxies. So really, it's a very small thing when you're shooting C300 Mark II, C700 to get an SD card, enable the proxies, and just have it there for a much quicker turnaround. So that's it for the most part of this. We've got, if you're interested in learning more, we do have a CLL booth on the other side of this wall. We're doing one-on-ones there all day today and tomorrow. I believe they're all completely booked up, though, because we're just that popular. But if you want to talk and catch me between a one-on-one, we can totally chat more about that. And if you want to learn more, go to learn.usa.canon.com. And that's where we got a lot of great online stuff. I've got some articles up there. We've got a new C700 video series coming out up there. That's going to be really great for the C700 shooter. Does a little bit of proxy workflow, a little bit of workflow discussion on there. So come check us out and let us know if you have any questions. All right, thank you all.